Behind every photograph, there's a reality that many may find terrifying. Think about it. Each image is a petrified moment, an exact instant that tells a story where life is kept in a permanent pause for eternity. What does this ephemeral moment hide? What can we discover when we look at them? Some tell the life of a person, others a beautiful landscape, and only some hide the exact moment before the life of those portrayed changed forever. Don't you think so? Then get ready to know the stories behind these 7 photos that were taken seconds before a big disaster happened. We assure you that you will never look at photography the same way again. Number 7. 2 friends and an ending. There are feats that transcend time, and Wiley Post was an almost unparalleled one. He was the first pilot to fly solo around the world, and in 1935 he was in the prime of his career. He had very little left to do but to enjoy his fame. However, earlier that year he ran into his good friend Will Rogers. Good friend Will Rogers, a famous comedian and social commentator who proposed him a new trip, perhaps his last. A round-the-world trip together to have a sweet memory to tell their grandchildren about. Wiley thought long and hard about it, but on August 15 of that same year, they both posed for the camera. The picture portrayed them as they were at the time, joyful, excited, ready to take a great trip that ended in great tragedy. Shortly before takeoff from a lagoon near Point Barrow, Alaska, Wiley Post's experimental Lockheed Explorer seaplane had an engine problem, causing a lethal failure in the plane, which plunged to the earth and exploded on the spot. Both died in that accident. Number 6. A couple in the face of adversity. In 2006, a man was helping to clean up the beaches of Seattle when he came across an object hidden in the sand. It was a damaged camera. After a few seconds of hesitation, he threw it in the trash, but not before removing the memory. When he got home, he downloaded the images onto his computer, and what he discovered seemed to be something really valuable to him. In front of the camera, a woman was posing for the photographer. She was pretty, sweet, and cheerful, and had the beaches of Thailand in the background. However, as the pictures progressed, everything took on a dark, grayish, terrifying color. The sea became stormy, and photo after photo, the size of the waves increased until the last photo, where a several-meter-high wave appeared. That carousel of photographs showed a holiday trip on the Thai beaches on December 26, 2004, and the protagonists were none other than the Canadian couple John and Jackie Nill. Their bodies were found on January 13, 2005, and it was discovered that these photographs belonged to them thanks to a missing persons website. The man who found the camera gave the photographs to their children in Vancouver, Canada. Number 5. Lady Diana. Some photographs come to shed light on strange events that even in our days remain unexplained. And in the case of Lady Diana, any clue is extremely valuable to decipher what really happened. The photograph was taken on August 31, 1997, and shows the hotel driver Henry Paul on the right and Dodi Fayed's bodyguard Trevor Reese-Jones in the passenger seat. In the back, there is Princess Diana looking infinitely tired from the paparazzi chasing her and Dodi Fayed at her side. None of those present could imagine that just a few minutes after that photo, the Mercedes that was entering the Pont de Lamas underground passage at a speed of 105 kilometers per hour would crash into one of the tunnel's pillars, causing the instant death of Dodi Fayed and Henry Paul. Only Trevor Reese-Jones managed to survive the accident, and although Princess Diana survived until the arrival of the ambulance, it is rumored that the paparazzi arrived first before the paramedics, and instead of helping her, they photographed her over and over again. Number 4. The Plane of the Cannibals. 1972 is a year that has been the subject of many questions, countless books, and countless newspapers and news headlines. That year, Uruguay Flight 571 left the airport with a group of people who were destined to suffer one of the greatest tragedies in the region. One of the passengers took a photograph before takeoff. The image portrays the group in a wonderful way. You can see the tranquility and comradeship in their faces. It is a historic image, especially because of what happened afterwards. While the plane was flying over the Andes on October 13 of that year, an unknown failure interfered with the aircraft's controls, causing it to crash into the Andes. 45 people survived the crash and waited to be rescued, but hopes faded as the days went by. The world vanished for those victims trapped in the middle of the Andes without food and water. Desperation and need took over their systems, and they were forced to resort to cannibalism. After 72 days of hardship, only 16 of the 45 passengers were rescued. Number 3. Car bomb. Some events are meant to be immortalized, and the Omagh bombing is undoubtedly one of them. On that August 15, 1998, a photographer took out his camera to capture the day. Perhaps it was a hunch, or he just felt like the place around him cried out to be photographed. Whatever the reason, the man pulled out his equipment, leaned on the ground in County Tyrone in Northern Ireland, and pressed the button. The result is a photograph of a city in motion with men, vehicles, and structures standing at least one last time until minutes later that red car next to the yellow-shirted man and his son exploded with such force that it killed 29 people and injured 220. Father and son survived the bombing. The photographer, sadly, was not as lucky. Number 2. Shuttle Tragedy. The U.S. space program as we know it today is underpinned by a myriad of accidents and fateful tests. One of the most emblematic occurred on January 28, 1986. On that day, the 7 crew members of the Space Shuttle Challenger were captured on camera. In the photograph, they are smiling and happy to be part of the 10th flight of the Challenger orbiter and the 20th of the Space Shuttle fleet. The mission was scheduled to deploy a communications satellite and study Halley's Comet while in orbit. But unfortunately, they were never able to accomplish their mission. On January 28 of that year, 73 seconds after liftoff, the shuttle suffered a failure in one of the space shuttle's rocket boosters, which caused an absolute catastrophe. All 7 crew members were killed instantly. Number 1. The buried miners. Mines aren't usually a very safe place for their workers. Plunging deep into the earth often has serious consequences that result in death. From explosions to cave-ins, these small death traps deep in the earth are the scene of countless tragedies every year. But rarely do we get to see something like what happened in Kohat. There, just before the fatal accident occurred, 8 workers descended in pairs until they reached the depths of the coal mine in Kala Kel, an area bordering Dara Adam Kel in Pakistan. Minutes after this photograph was taken, while the workers were busy digging, a gas explosion silenced the men's picks and howls. Only silence and smoke remained, and it took several weeks of work to recover the bodies of the 8 miners. Just as these photographs mark the harbinger of terrible outcomes, there are other images that simply offer inexplicable situations, paranormal occurrences, and events that no one can decipher despite the passing of time. Their stories go back to the past, and if you are willing to know what is hidden behind them, then you should watch the following videos.